Josh, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for making the trip.
Yeah, no problem. So tell me a little bit about like TNT. How did this place start?
Yep. So we do masonry restoration. We restore churches, courthouses, schools. My dad had started the company in 1993. So
Yeah.
I was 12 years old, still had to work with him every summer, working on parapets of schools and stuff like that, where he'd say, hey, get up on the roof, but make sure you duck down if anybody's looking, because we don't want to see that there's a 12-year-old up here working. So no labor laws are violated, because I've looked it up, and apparently as long as it's your own kid, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, there you go.
And so now in my role now, as I've grown the company, when I started out, it was just my dad and a couple guys.
Yeah.
We've grown it to, we've got about 18 employees.
Wow.
Just little by little.
Yeah.
And that's about where I want to be.
It's like job by job, little by little, like you've grown it into something. I mean, do you have is there ambitions beyond where you're at right now? Or?
Yeah, not quite sure exactly how far I would want to go until I know.
Yeah.
But as it is right now, I'm at the point where I feel pretty comfortable about where the business is size-wise. Where it no longer takes as much cash to keep growing.
Yeah.
So now the focus is really on profitability. Yep. And that's kind of what drove us to looking at Intacct
that's
products
awesome.
like that. So
okay. So coming from 100 contractor.
Yep.
Did you inherit that system? I mean, was that?
No. So I knew. So that we actually just did that implementation. I want to say 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Growing up in this business, they did, just straight up regular QuickBooks. So then I did QuickBooks Contractor, and then you do a little bit of job costing. And then every time I'd see the limitations of it, I'm like, man, I wish I could really dig in a little bit better on this little component. And so at the time when we looked back, I was used to coming from QuickBooks, which is a fairly cheap and expensive off the shelf system. And so we were looking at really 100 contractor, Sage 300, and then there was Acumatica at the time. Those were kind of some of the options, and I thought at that time 100 contractor was probably our best fit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know where technology was going and all that, so I said, well, let's work around that, and then we started integrating everything with it, and that's a really solid system too.
Yeah.
And it worked pretty well for us. But what really kind of drove me to start looking at what the next generations will be is, we do everything around Procore.
Yep.
So Procore is kind of our hub, and every other software we use needs to integrate with that, just for the efficiencies, because I don't have administrative staff.
Yep.
So looking
at, I think you'd find that even in a larger business. I mean, we have so many customers that, their choice to go with Procore is driven by the owner of the project, or it's just driven by the fact that it's just so widely used.
Yep.
And so we find that that's, it's like the core requirement.
Yeah.
Does it integrate with Procore?
Right.
And how does it integrate with Procore?
Yep. Yes. Yeah. And so, and we've had Procore for maybe 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
And so we've grown with it, because you build out, a lot of it still is, it's kind of a shell, and you're still building all your own processes inside of it and stuff too. I mean, it's a learning curve as well. But what kind of got me looking at that, it was I started learning about analytics, the power of analytics and Power BI and all this, very technical stuff. And it led me down to, well, really, I don't have the data. All that stuff's only as good as the data you get.
Yep.
And so I knew before I started putting a big push on getting the right data, I better start with the right system. Don't start going down this road with Sage 100 if, in a few years you're going to want to switch anyways, right? So that's why I was well, I know we're maybe a little bit early on in the Intacct lifespan, but the product was baked full, pretty well baked up enough for us to jump on board and start, using it and developing the right data.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit on a point. I mean, even just in the past, I think couple of years, the emphasis on using BI and using dashboards and things like that to work smarter, not harder. You know, because sure, you can pull reports out of Excel and things like that, but nothing beats being able to just pull up a dashboard real quick and see where you're at on a project or see where you're at on certain things. And like you said, I think the legacy software, it serves a purpose and it serves it really well.
Yeah.
And it it does a great job. It's just, how do we get that data out of that system and then report it? Report it the way we need to, so we can find those little nuances and things like that.
Yeah. And just from my CPA Society magazines, the AICPA, would endorse it. So that was a big thing for me. I'm like,
thing, yeah.
I kind of like getting back into the debits and credits of it. That's the super nerdy part
right?
of accounting. But, maybe that's a smaller portion of my world that I live in, but I enjoy that when I do, I maybe spend 20% of my time doing the CFO type role.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy that with this system. And those are the things I struggled with 100 Contractor. It's like, it's very hard to develop your own reports.
Yeah.
And, and with Intacct, it's almost limitless. Like the ways you can build in I'm still really learning, but you can build in calculations and all these things.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful.
Well, and I think like too, the exciting part about Intacct, when I look at it from a surface level, and like 100 Contractor, 300 CRE, like it's fantastic tools, but you just even look at the custom report designer, and that's like their sort of base level in Intacct.
Yeah. And
where you can just start checking boxes and things, and then like kick out a report. Like we're never able to do that in 100, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of moved you? Like, what was really the driving decision behind Intacct?
Yeah. So the driving thing was just looking forward and saying, oh gosh, you know what? In 5 years, this is where I want to be with analytics, because I think all this stuff's going to move so quick. To me, like the holy grail is to get these connections you don't see. Like, I'm hoping, this is pretty theoretical, but I think it'll get there, is where you'll be able to start to see those relationships where, gosh, man, every job Reed is on, that thing makes an additional 20% beyond what any other crew does, or something like that. To see those kind of relationships where, you may not pick it apart, something like that. Or if, Sam's really good at, caulking. So anytime he's involved with a project that is primarily caulking, that has a greater chance to make money, or locations, looking at certain locations that you're more profitable. Yep. I mean, you can get there with a lot of the current tools, but it may take a lot of time, and I'm hoping the analytics might make some of those connections quicker and more efficiently.
Yeah, and I think it's once you start, sort of like you got that high level of like, okay, this is kind of where I'm going, and then you kind of look at the data structure and the architecture of it, and learn about building out the dashboards and things like that. You get that sort of idea, and then you go down the dashboard rabbit hole, is what I call it.
Yeah.
Because when we first got our system, and I was like, oh wow, it's got a built-in analytics tool. Like this is pretty cool. Like I'm going to spend a lot of time on this.
Right.
This could be dangerous.
Yeah.
But it really has helped us identify, a lot of things from, anywhere from like, tickets that are unresolved to, our businesses are different.
Yeah.
But in a way, they're similar, because we can look at, I can drill down into certain projects, to certain customers, to certain all of that stuff, and figure out, lifetime spend and profitability, and ticket numbers versus project numbers and all of that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. So talk to me a little bit about obviously Intacct is not an inexpensive system.
Right.
So you guys are a small business.
Right.
How'd you justify the cost?
Yeah. So for us, it's always most companies our size would have like at least one, maybe two, like project administrators, people that are handling like the administrative almost busy work or whatever, right? I would say. Yep. Right, because you've got all these different systems, and if you don't have them integrated, then that does take a lot of data entry. And so that's why all of our stuff's been driven by every single one of our systems has to talk and communicate to each other. So we're eliminating all that data entry, and we're trying to make the process a little quicker. So as far from an overhead standpoint, it's just me and another guy named Mike are project managers and estimators. And then my wife does all the basic bookkeeping. So that's really it. And so that's pretty lean compared to some of our competitors. So I always view it as, I would rather spend money on software that I know will always add 1 + 1 = 2, versus a lot of really good administrative people. But then also that is one more person to manage. Yeah. So I'm getting time back by investing it in the process.
Yep.
getting the processes built out, and then that always will work.
Yep.
And having an administrative person is just another person to manage, honestly.
Yeah,
it sounds bad, but
no, I don't think it does.
You're trying to
bad,
get your time back.
Yeah, I mean, because also too, like, there isn't. I think is obviously people who manage other people. Like, there's no reward in managing somebody who does really menial tasks.
Right.
Like data entry and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's it's just nobody likes doing it.
Right.
And there's always something beyond that job, I think, for a lot of people too.
Yes.
And so, from, folks who run businesses, I mean, from that perspective, like, that's a high turnover position.
Right.
We all know that.
Yep.
Like, and, so if you look at your total cost in terms of that position itself, that seat to have it,
right.
it can become really much more expensive than just the salary.
Yep.
And I think that oftentimes people, we do talk to people a lot of times and say, wow, Intacct is expensive. And it definitely is if you are looking at it just purely from a price sticker standpoint.
Yep.
But that's any system.
Yep.
I mean, I don't care, if you need a specific system that does what you need it to do.
Right.
And it's built for construction. There's going to be a cost to that.
Yep.
And, I think that's a great approach that you,
it's
perspective that you have. So not everybody's a pioneer in technology. I mean,
right.
What makes you feel comfortable and good with that, with being, on the cutting edge of things?
Yeah. I mean, you do run into some hiccups and stuff. I would say Intacct less than some of the other softwares, even, honestly. We tend to, like what I say, I like to integrate everything. I found many software companies say, oh yeah, we can integrate with that. Uh-huh. And sometimes I find out it's a 6-month process and I must have been the first person. So they can integrate with it. You may be the one that you're the first person they're designing it for. But, at the end of the day, you get what you want out of it, and you get better by being one of the first ones. It kind of forces you to get good tech support, because it's a hand-in-hand collaboration, basically, of like, hey, this isn't working for me, guys. We need this fixed. Yeah. And then that becomes high priority. So as long as you can go into it and know there's a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the biggest struggles that, when we rolled out our Intacct strategy, I mean, one of our priorities was we want to be selling and offering the complete solution,
right?
Not the, it can integrate with that, and it could probably integrate with that. We can, it says they do, because as a VAR, as a business partner, we get saddled with that, so if we just look at the surface level of it and say, well, it says it integrates, we've been burned by that too. Where it's like, the ISV is what they're called. So it's like a third party software that, they have integration or whatnot into your system. So, not to just bash them, because there's a lot of great ones out there.
Oh yeah, sure.
But like, we've had experiences where they say, oh yeah, we've ran, several companies through this. We've got several blah, 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 all this stuff. And so we've stuck to the kind of tried and true, the people we know. Yeah. And we know who, hey, we've got really great relationships with. Right. Because it matters. Right. We don't want to sell something to somebody that, then, it says it does one thing and then it doesn't. Right. So it's really important. Yeah. But so let's talk a little bit about like our Bangert's deployment. Yeah. So we've obviously, as part of our, what we're doing and all of this stuff, is we're saying, hey, the old way of doing things is done. Like the one-to-one consulting, and typically you get a tranche of hours, and as soon as those hours are up, you'd have to buy more hours, or, decide to, or do we know it? Are we good enough? And once that's spent, it's gone. Yep. So, I mean, was any part of what we presented in like deployment, was that a driving factor in your decision too? Yeah. I mean, I liked, because I wanted to have a really accelerated time frame, right? So like, I think we might have started talking in October or something. And then I knew by, mid-November, I wanted to do it, and I wanted to have it implemented by January 1st. There aren't very many
implementations that you can do in such a short window.
Yeah.
And and you guys were good about like, yeah, you can bring you on board, and started building out that enablement, which was kind of like the part where you're checking things out in the beginning.
Yep.
Right. So I was able to dedicate a lot of time up front, like just going through those classes and the classes were good in that they're just walking you through how to like set up all the different stuff. So I was able to set up a lot of the, the cash accounts, the AP vendors, bring a lot of these things in, do a lot of that stuff up front, and then worked through deployment where we're actually watching the videos and live classes on there. Yep. So that was pretty helpful. And, and we were one of the first ones doing the live classes. So then, it was kind of a little give and take, and I'd be like, hey, maybe we should maybe move this class ahead of this one or something.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Which is perfect feedback. I mean, we like one of our goals is just simply, so back when my grandpa and my dad started the business, Timberline.
Yeah.
So before it was Sage, it was called Timberline.
Yep.
For 100 contractors called Master Builder. Yep. And so in order to become I think they were like Timberline dealer number 2 or 3. I can't remember. But so in order to become a Timberline member, reseller, they had to provide a reference or a couple of references.
Yep.
And so at the time, my grandpa had developed a software that helped, these independent oil producers track their input and output oil on DOS.
Yep.
And because there used to be, several around the Midwest. I mean, hundreds of companies. So they had about 800 customers on that. And so they handed the whole list over to Sage or Timberline. They said, and Timberline was like, well, who do you want us to call? And they said, any one of them.
Right.
And so our goal is like, we want customers to be not just like satisfied, but like insanely happy with what we're offering, and not just from a software, but from a deployment standpoint too.
Yeah.
And like you had mentioned, you're like, hey, I want to be live by January 1st. Well, that's totally in your control with our process and the way that we do it.
Yep.
You can go as fast or as slow as you want to go.
Yep.
I'm talking to a few more people, and I've used your story as inspiration, but I say, he worked probably some nights and weekends to get that done, know, and I'm talking to others who are like, oh, this is great because I can take the classes at any point in time.
Right.
We can roll this out over a year. We don't have to feel pressured and put under a pressure cooker to get this thing switched over, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
that's why I like this process better too, is that you are taking control and you can do a lot of it yourself. But you can also set up those, I'd set up meetings, be like, hey, here's my plan. I plan on getting through fixed assets this week. Can you set me up? Why don't we meet, for 1 hour, and can you give me kind of the overview of how it's all going to work?
Yep.
Some of that, little bit of that hands-on time there, but where you could do a lot of the basics yourself and then check in, and I think you're calling them office hours or something like that. Those check-in type things.
Yeah. Office hours. And, our goal is just, we want really great people.
Right.
And that's been our focus, and our focus over the past 5 years has been, how do we attract and retain the top talent? Because, we're a very specific niche.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a ton of people out there that do what we do.
Yep.
And we just have such a great team that's on board with that concept of like, hey, we want to put out free resources.
Yep.
We want to create a community where people can post, questions, or they can get answers. We want to do free live streams. I think you could probably implement or deploy yourself on Intacct just from our YouTube channel if you really wanted to.
Right.
And so there's that sort of mix, and we just know that that one-to-one kind of like, just as you were saying, like you could come in here and you could watch our videos in enablement and just sort of, get some things set up. You didn't have to say, hey, can I get a meeting, and then keep, paying for those meetings and things like that.
And I would say so me being able to be hands-on now, that was my frustration when I did 100. We deployed it at a time where we were going into our busy season. And so me not, coming from QuickBooks, that's just, you just install it and you go, right? I didn't know what all happens in setup. So then my wife and the consultant would set it all up, right? And so I never was involved with that initial setup. So like I was struggling to understand, hey, what's happening in the accounting side here? Like what, cause, in 100 you talk about screens, it's in a 5-4-2 screen. And that's how my wife would start talking to me, is on these screens. And I was like, I don't care. Like
menu 18 dash whatever. Yeah.
Like I don't care about the data entry part of it. Like help me understand the flow here, know? And so like Intacct gets back to, it's, a flow of the process. There's not like numbered screens and all that. It's more what we're used to being in a web environment now, where you're just, clicking on different.
Yeah. Well, I think we had some questions from our staff that they wanted to ask.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's just kind of changing kind of the way you think about it. Like so many in construction industry, like don't value software as how it can improve your business. So I view it as it's a tool, and it's a really key important tool. Is just as important as, having the right telehandler for us on the job. Like I need, good, stable reporting software for accounting, to really understand where our business is going and where it's been. And so evaluating that from the value it's providing, not necessarily just the dollar cost. And then looking at the future, looking at where things are going. I think you want to, if you're looking at changing systems at all, this is definitely the way I would be looking. I wouldn't, I'm in some different groups, CFMA type groups, and I see people on there still considering moving, to 100 contractor, or 300, or some of the other softwares out there. And it kind of blows me away.
Yeah.
That would be great, but I feel like it's going to be a stepping stone, like I did. I did QuickBooks because I knew that wasn't the solution, but there wasn't like the Intacct out there.
Yep.
Some of those other ones like the Acumatica, I was like, I'm not 100% sold on that. But then you look at Intacct with the AI CPA backing it, so it's super solid for accounting, and then seeing all the integrations that are already up and running effectively, especially the Procore one, and all the money going into it. You just see that this product is going to be high priority for a long time. So
yeah, absolutely.
Looking at it from the value proposition, not just the cost, I think is the big thing. Going to 100, the typical deployment takes, you have like, like I say, I wasn't the one doing it. And I remember being frustrated because it was like, okay, you did 2 meetings a week for like an hour at a time. And it's like, let's go, right?
Yeah,
we're implementing this thing.
Yeah,
like I want to be go.
Yeah.
I want to be rolling. So, and I would say we tempered our expectations. So like everybody was on board, like, hey, we want to go live 1/1, but we have very small amount of things that have to be ready by 1/1. So all we said had to be ready was payroll. We need to cut that first check in the first week of January. Yep. So that worked and that went fine. And then, by the end of January, we're like, hey, by the end of January, we got to get our AP like fully functioning.
Yep.
To pay those bills for that month end.
And that kind of
and that worked fine.
Yeah, it worked out great. Right?
It worked out good. Yep. And I would say we could have done all that sooner. The only thing was that we were working new integrations in, right? So we brought in HH2 for our
document recognition.
Yes, document flow.
Yep.
Because that's how we wanted our process to be. We had something similar with Sage Paperless, and we liked that too.
Yep.
We chose HH2 because it was also cloud-based.
Yep. What would you tell another contractor who's maybe they need to be assured about the payroll system? What do you think about the payroll system?
Yeah. So the payroll system, it's fully functioning. It takes a little bit to get set up. But it's super powerful. We're not a union contractor, but if you were a union contractor, I know that's a huge thing because it seems like almost limitless, all the different pay modifiers and all these detailed things. Again, the payroll's my wife's side, so I only wanted to know enough to help her go through anything, you know.
Yeah.
But once I heard, okay, it's set up, then I pretty much tried to forget everything I knew. So. But I know it was really powerful.
Yeah.
And I know we've worked out a couple kinks with Mike, and then he brought him up right away to Sage, and I think they were working on some of those right away. So
yeah,
we've been able to run payroll successfully and do all of our reporting and everything.
No hiccups. No last minute freakouts.
Yeah.
I appreciate the time today.
No, worked good. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem.